And now we move on to the first demonstration run of the day, featuring the solos. And of course, I guess this is what the true meaning of Speedway is all about. Solo motorcycle racing, as we know it right from its infancy at West Maitland, under the guidance of Johnny Hoskins, as we watch some of the riders, some of the machines that are here today, a variety of machines in fact, going from Jock Everett's famous Douglas machine, and other machines, of course, the two-valve Java, which was very dominant throughout the era of the late 60s, throughout the 70s, of course, and other machines, the AJS machine, of course, the famous Jap, the JA Presswick, very famous Speedway machine, going through from the halcyon days of solo motorcycle racing throughout the world, the JA Presswick, the Jap machine, used by all Speedway riders at one stage, virtually throughout the world, and ridden in many, many world finals by some of the all-time great riders. Now, of course, we also hasten to point out here too that some of the riders that you'll be seeing on screen throughout today's demonstration runs, we have a number of competitors, some not necessarily listed in the program, and of course also some of the machines that were in the static display on the infield. Well, they won't be taking part in some of these demonstration runs. But just looking at some of the riders there, and you can see at the top of the screen, right out the front of the line of riders, that's Jock Everett riding the famous Douglas machine. And you go from different era, of course, Jock Everett, 80 years of age, and it's a 1928 dirt track Douglas, originally raced in the United Kingdom. And Jock Everett is certainly a man who obviously so very experienced in motorcycle racing, and Jock, of course, has bought that machine 6 years ago and restored it absolutely beautiful. And he started his racing career in 1932 in Victoria, and completed his racing activities after World War II. But good on you, Jock Everett. Great to have you here today. 80 years young, and there he is getting ready now to this. Looks like one rider there dressed for the occasion. And we just pan back now down the main straightaway. But solo motorcycle speedway racing, there's Jock Everett now moving away. There he is on screen, and riding that 1928 dirt track Douglas. Tremendous machine, and it's great to have Jock here today. But as I was saying, solo motorcycle racing, the true meaning of speedway racing, right from its earliest days, its earliest era, and full marks to the people here who have lovingly restored those motorcycles. And looking at some of the names in the printed program, Bernie Sheriff, Keith Gray, Tom Patterson, Stephen Knight, Stephen Bray, Bruce Fenton, Phil Baker, Les Warren, Alan Hickey, and many, many more. Full marks to you people for the time, the effort that you've put into restoring some of these motorcycles, as we watch some of the riders now just moving around the Bendigo International Raceway and coming down the main straightaway. But a great occasion here today, and we're just watching now the riders moving in. This is demonstration race number 2, and the riders now just coming into line. Of course, when we talk about solo speedway racing throughout the 40s, all the venues throughout Australia, the major capital city venues, virtually that was the program. And of course, Australia had some great test riders over the years, and riders who performed so extremely well on the international scene, and riders who rode in England in the British League. And speaking of riders who rode in the British League and people that have had an involvement in speedway solo racing, and a man whose comments today will be able to tell us a little bit about what it was like, and the man behind Carrick Video in 1990, and of course it's Richard Dave. Welcome to Bendigo, and you guys are doing a great job here today with your coverage, but we thought we might grab you just to have a bit of a talk about the great era of speedway bike racing.
Thanks very much, Dennis. It's really a great pleasure and a thrill to be down here to cover this sort of a meeting. It really brings back fond memories. These particular bikes on the racetrack at the moment, shall we say, more from the modern era. I think there's one or two there. Probably.
One down there, Richard, just as we speak. Yes. That's right. A lot of these, of course, are the two-valve Jawas, which you rated in your career in England, correct?
Yes, I rode 74 and 75 seasons with the Birmingham Brummies in England, and also did a stint with the Crew Kings as well as the Stoke Potters. And 1974-75 saw the two valves in England, but come 1976 was the introduction of the Westlake motor, which is English built, and that was more powerful than the two-valve Jawa. In fact, it was a four-valve head, and it really saw a lot of riders, breaking a little bit more speed records on the tracks in England, also in Australia. But I think the man who was responsible for these four-valve engines is Neil Street, and I think it was roughly 1975 when Neil made the first street conversion for his actual son-in-law in Phil Crump.
And before, of course, Richard, the era of the four-valve, the Jawa two-valve really dominated with the likes of Ivan Major, Ollie Olsen, Anders Mischnick, winning world finals, and they were a very good, competent engine. Of course, the Jawa built in Czechoslovakia really led the way for a number of years there as we watched the riders in the next demonstration run heading for the first turn. But the Jawa certainly dominated, Richard, in the 70s.
Yeah, you're certainly right there, Dennis. I think the Jawa came into prominence possibly from recollection in the early 60s, and I think Bob Sharp was actually one of the first riders out here to actually receive a two-valve, the new two-valve ESO as it was known in those days. And the two-valve Jawa certainly held prominence right up to the early to mid-70s, and when the four-valve motors came on the scene, that's when Jawa thought they had to do something about this as well, so they eventually made their own four-valve machine as well.
Now, you've been taking a look today, of course, at these restored bikes. There's a lot of hours obviously gone into these, Richard. Good workmanship, beautifully restored some of the machines. Taking a walk around the infield earlier on today.
Yeah, there certainly was. There was one or two particular bikes I did notice during the static displays, which were like the two-valve Jawa type, and they were restored back to their completely original condition. It was really, really terrific to see, because it really brought back fond memories for myself as to how my first bike looked. And just looking at the older type of Speedway bikes, like there's a typical two-valve Jawa just on screen there.
Moving on now to the next event, demonstration run number 5, and some of the riders involved in this demonstration run: Dean Coles, and the rider in the blue leathers is Chris Barton, and Lance Coleman there with the orange vest on. Also, just some of the riders involved in this demonstration run, demonstration number 5, as we watch the riders moving down onto the back straightaway, lining up down into turn number 3. Some taking it pretty gingerly, others just opening the throttle a little bit more. And some of the riders here tonight also too have just turned up for a ride. Some riders out of Victoria, some of the more younger riders, shall we say, just keen to have a run tonight. So some of these machines seem to be turning a fair speed around the Bendigo Raceway. It's the fact that some of these younger riders are having a run tonight, just to be a part of the occasion here at Bendigo. And looking through the names, we have some of the riders we hasten to add, not necessarily out in this race, because generally it's not to the format of a proper race meeting. That's not the whole idea of these classic events. But Tom Patterson, one rider listed here today, riding a Jawa, a 1965 model Jawa, two-valve, and also to Ken Anderson on a Harley Davidson. Also involved here tonight, 1240cc machine from the era of 1929, and Stephen Knight in a two-valve pushrod Jawa, 1973 model. That's number 16, racing bike number 16. We watch the next event move underway now, and Stephen Knight, one rider who involved here today on the 1973 model Jawa, and another Jawa machine, a two-valve pushrod of the year of 1969-70, and that's Dick Grills. Dick Grills also out there too.
Let's see if I can butt in there a little bit, Dennis. The rider out in front, we're not sure who he is, but he certainly has the riding style of a great Australian rider from many, many years back in the name of Vic Duggan. Just watching this rider going on round, Vic Duggan was the first name that sprung to mind, and if you just watch him carefully, just a classic style, right around the front with the white vest.
Yeah, Vic Duggan, you mentioned a name there, a great name of Australian solo racing, and a rider who formerly rode in England with the Haringey races, and winner of the 1947 British Riders' Championship at the Wembley Stadium. And of course, on that particular occasion, the man who presented Vic Duggan with the trophy was none other than the Duke of Edinburgh. And the comparison you made there is a good one, because Vic Duggan, certainly some great photos from those great books from days of yesteryear, very similar, as you pointed out, his style, that particular rider on the screen. And we await for the next demonstration run on the program today, and that it will feature the sidecars.